So I'm going to pull up my, I'm going to
So
pull up,
we're gonna have to move this thing along tonight.
yeah.
Probably. Hi, Peter.
Hi, Melissa. Hi, everybody. Hi, John.
Hello, Peter.
Hi, Jeff.
Doing okay in this heat? I've been climbing the traps in Minnewaska in this heat, if you can imagine that.
Oh my God.
Ooh,
Surveying.
Well, I haven't spent more than enough time to get from my car to the house, and it didn't feel bad out in Bearsville Flats. I didn't realize it was so pretty out there, all those huge trees.
Yeah. Yeah.
Although I don't know if Elman Drive is actually the flats or if it's something else.
Yeah, I think the next couple days too, right, with the heat? And then it'll break.
91. Certainly didn't feel like 91.
Yeah, it was 99 actually in New Falls.
Yeah.
You know, yesterday I was supposed to go do something in Saugerties, and I decided not to go because I really wasn't up for an outdoor event when it was 100.
Well,
It
you
was
should
warm.
try dragging all the survey equipment and guns and legs and everything through 3 foot of laurel straight up a hill for about
Not
4 hours
that,
straight.
Laurel.
I think I will pass.
I think Tuesday, I took a walk with a dog that I was taking care of in the woods. And I was like, what was I thinking? That was like the first day of the heat.
Peter,
So
you probably will have trouble believing it, but when I was in my 20s, I was part of a firefighting team on Wyndham High Peak. We had to climb up about a mile and then dig trenches.
Oh, wonderful.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
And back then I could do it. Ha ha.
It's on the table.
Back then I could do it. Not now.
Whew. Yeah.
I think I was a sophomore in college that year.
Oh, great. Experiences.
Now my goal is to be able to hike the Como, but not yet. But I'm walking better.
Well, that's good news. Without the walker.
In the house, I don't use anything. Going out to my mailbox, I don't use anything. Most places, the only time I use the walker is if I don't know that there's going to be a chair I can get up from. And I'm getting up from chairs in like the theaters, theater seats. If it's got arms and it's fixed to the floor or up against the wall, I can get up from it. And that's only in the last couple months. So it's a real improvement.
That's good.
Way to go, Judy.
Well, I have a good trainer and I actually do it.
You have to use it or you lose it.
Well, I'm rebuilding things that I didn't have.
Exactly. It's tough. I watch with my mom.
I've got a great trainer if you want to know his name. He's very good with people our age, my age.
Do you go to him or does he come to you?
We are at the moment, since COVID, we've been on Google Duo,
Okay.
which is basically like, FaceTime.
Yeah.
But I have equipment in the house.
Right. Yeah, we bought her a few things too.
I have a massage table, which means I can do leg lifts on the floor, except that I can't get up from the floor. So I'm doing it on the massage table.
Right.
And a stairway post that I can grab for doing leg lifts and stuff, standing.
Good. Good. Hi, Bri. Hi, Stuart. I see you guys are muted.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, Brian.
Hello, Brian's cat. My cat may not be on top of my chair because I bought her a cat tree and she likes it. So she's she's sleeping on top of the cat tree some of the time.
We won't have a quorum unless she's present.
I'll have to tell her that. Papa.
She gets my vote.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody, it is 6:30. And we do have a quorum. Get my cursor over here. So I'd like to call to order the regular planning board meeting of the Woodstock Planning Board for July 21st, 2022. And it's held via Zoom today. So we do have a quorum. So Melissa, do you have any updates to the agenda?
Nope, none.
Okay, under communications and announcements, we have an email from Jay Jobson regarding the HOTF proposals received July 1st. We have the 2022 Fall Planning and Zoning Schools from Association of Towns. We have a memo from Matt Rudikoff regarding the FAM Acres. We have the Ulster County Active Transportation and Complete Streets Training available, which we received on the 14th. We have an email from Coplis and Smith, Bugs and Jackets, which is in regard to the library. And we have a letter from G. Krein, DeGraff, and DeGraff regarding the Lori Uberstocker application, which we'll get into when we do her application. So we have before us tonight 2 public hearings and 2 sketch plan reviews. So the first public hearing, and we have a couple of minutes, but we'll get.
You want to approve the minutes? That'll wait.
Oh, the minutes, yes, the minutes for,
June 30th.
yeah, June 30th. If all board members are okay with that, I think we should adopt them as they are.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, guys.
Okay. So our first public hearing is Samantha Yurkowski and Hugh Boyd, which is special use case 220665. And this is a public hearing for a special use permit application to construct a dwelling located in the R3 and Scenic Overlay Zoning District at Route 212 in Woodstock. And I know site rep was up and said things look good. So if the applicants would like to tell us, the board, what it is, and the public, what it is they're planning to do.
We are looking to build, is that me?
That's you.
Okay, we are looking to build a 800 square foot cabin for my wife, our son, and I. What else can I say about it?
Well, we've reviewed the plans. We've all seen them. And the site rep was there and said things look good. I know we had a discussion about the trees, and in the pictures you showed us, the trees that were marked that were in the cabin footprint, we know had to go. But I think we were pretty okay with everything else. But let me ask the board members, have any questions for the applicant regarding the proposal?
Do you need any plans up, Peter?
I don't think so.
Well, let me ask the public. Is there anybody from the public who wants to get some more information on this case?
Nope, I had no comments and no one here.
Because all the board members have seen it, I guess, unless a board member wants to have the plan up again. It was pretty straightforward. It was a cabin. As I said, they marked it out and showed the trees would have to come down.
Good boy.
I mean, it is in the scenic overlay. So, you know, we should do all the due diligence we can, but we have reviewed it. We site planned it. So unless any board member has questions or for the applicant, please ask them. If not, I'll take a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so Melissa, you will set them up
I will. I just
for
need you
whatever they
to
need
approve,
to do.
I'll go out with you.
approve the application before, and then we'll do the draft resolution later. Hugh, I'll be in touch in the next few weeks, and then we'll get your final plans all together and have them signed. So in a few weeks, you'll be back to the building department.
Great, great.
Your time in front of the planning board is done.
Whichever you were
Great.
using.
Can I ask another question?
Absolutely.
If I wanted to add like a shed, like a 500 square foot shed, what would the process be?
You would talk to the building department first, and then they would refer you back to us. If it's under a certain square footage, you might be able to just go through with them, but I think it's 300 square feet. So 500 might be a little larger and you'd have to come back and do it with us.
Okay. And same thing goes with like an accessory dwelling. If we build like a small, like a cottage, guest cottage, same process?
Yes, same process.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you so much for all your time.
Now I have a question. This is Brian with the planning board. What's your timeline on both of those new dwellings that you're talking about or structures, please?
That timeline, that's a great question. It really depends on how fast you guys approve those projects.
And my second question then is, why aren't they included
Well,
in this original plan?
the reason why is, we thought about building a bigger house, like a 2,000 square foot house, but we are rethinking that whole strategy because we really love the forest and don't want to take that many trees down. So the smaller the structures, there's less impact on the land.
Okay, so I'm not going to
you
speak.
guys really changed my whole. My wife and I really discussed your influence, and it completely changed our strategy.
Okay, so I'm not speaking for the planning board. I'm speaking for myself. But when I hear these things, and I hear them all the time, it gives me pause because the project goes from what is originally proposed to us to something bigger, and I personally, that always gives me concern.
Just go.
Well, Brian makes a good point, Brian. I mean, it's in the scenic overlay, so obviously if we knew there was going to be more development, it would be nice to have a heads up, but as it is, when they apply for something else, then we go back and review it as it stands.
Peter,
Yeah,
Peter? Yeah.
Sure, go ahead, John.
It raises the issue of segmentation,
Mhm.
and that really is a concern. You want to do X today, but maybe I'm going to do Y and Z next week or the week after. So that's segmentation, and really that is not a good planning process.
Well, like I said before, after listening to you guys, we had, wanted to have a larger house, but that has changed. So it's really, we're listening to what you guys are saying and we're responding to that. So I wish I had the whole strategy laid out in front of you, but I'm getting to know you guys and what the neighborhood is sensitive to, and I'm trying to adapt to that. Does that make sense to you guys?
It does to me.
Okay.
John's point is well taken that, when we review a project, we'd like to be able to see what the whole project is going to be, but obviously in this case, you're going step by step and we'll just have to go step by step with you.
When are you thinking about that second step? Next year, this year?
I don't know.
No.
Probably next year.
No.
I mean,
No, second step, this is like within, I think, 5 years. I mean, we're going pretty slow. And again, anything we think about, we're constantly brainstorming. We would come to you to review anyway. So we got our hands full with this guy, and everything with us just takes a lot longer.
We're not a developer. We have big plans. We're just really taking this slowly.
I want to support this as a process. I'm an artist also. And sometimes you make something and then you look at it and say, it really needs that. And it's not a matter of envisioning the whole thing before you start. I mean, sometimes it is, but often and not, it's not. That being said, you understand why we are sensitive to this, because people do that as a way of kind of the camel's nose under the tent.
And
Yeah, I get it.
I want to
understand.
compliment your efforts with the pictures. I know it took a while for some members of the planning board to get it, but your pictures that displayed exactly what trees you plan to take down and how you depicted that in front of us, I thought that was really helpful. So
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. You know, and I'm just trying to get to know the neighborhood, and I really appreciate what you guys do as a board, because you want to protect the neighborhood, protect the trees. And that's why this region is so beautiful. So I respect every single step of the way.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, well,
All right,
good luck.
Mr. Cross, approve the application pending draft resolution, please.
Move approval.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Judy.
We need a second.
Second,
Second.
There we go.
okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, guys.
Guys.
Thank you.
Okay, good luck.
Bye-bye.
Talk to you soon, Hugh. Thank you. And Samantha.
Okay, our next public hearing is Lori Ubersacher, Planning Board Case 22-1233. And this is a public hearing for a subdivision application to subdivide a 22.4 acre lot into two parcels of 16.4 and 6 acres in the R8 and R5 zoning district located at 371 Erie Hill Road in Woodstock. And the rep is Jeffrey Hogan and Pretorius and Conrad. So if you folks would please, excuse me, first I got to open the public hearing. Make her entertain an offer to open a public hearing.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now we got it. Okay, so if Jeffrey or Pretorius and Conrad would please tell the public and the planning board what it is you propose to do.
Thank you, Peter. Again, my name is Jeff Hogan. I'm with Pretorius and Conrad and Saugerties. And we were hired by Neil Grant, who is looking to purchase 6 acres of land that's owned by Lori off of Erie Hill Road near the intersection of Ohio Mountain Road. The portion of the property that he's looking to purchase is at the northeast corner with proposed access from a private road and right-of-way known as DeGraff's Way. We were here last month and we went over this with the planning board, and they were going to make a site visit and have the highway department out there to look at everything. We've also had the health department out there and done test holes, perk tests. So the septic system process is underway right now. We don't see any issues with that being approved. And so basically it's Neil's a local person here in Woodstock looking to build a house there for his family. And that's about the extent of it.
Okay, all right, excellent. I was the site rep, so I drove up there and took a look at the site. As I mentioned before, it's not in the scenic overlay, but the way it's laid out is very protective of the scenic of the tree line and so on. The proposed building site is in sort of a flat area, and in front of that is a great tree grove that will block its view. So there's no serious driveway issues as far as getting from the DeGraff Way into the site. It's not a steep driveway, and there's not much clearing. It's actually a bunch of small pines in the area where they want to build. But we did get a letter from the DeGraffs, and but anyway, planning board sent a letter from the DeGraffs with a couple of concerns. The main one, of course, is the access. They said that there was another access off of another address, but as far as the planning board is concerned, you have legal access through this right of way. So the only other thing I can say, and I could ask Stuart to chime in on it, that if there's an issue, a legal issue over access, that the planning board doesn't resolve. That's a civil issue. But it's clear to us that this has correct access. So we've looked at it, we've pursued it, and if the access is legal and correct. They had a couple other concerns, which I guess all people do when they see a lot next to them being developed. They're just concerned about the nature, the animals, and the environment itself, which we all are. But this is an application for a subdivision that does meet all the zoning requirements. Stuart, would you agree with that, as far as the issue of the access?
Well, I wanted to ask you, when you say we have access, what is it about the proposed access that makes it correct?
The deed.
Oh, there you go.
So we're talking about this, right?
Correct, which is a legal right of way, goes all the way up past over Lori's property into the property up above.
So
And the only thing I can say to the DeGraffs and so on is that if we were subdividing, if all the lots on that driveway, on that road were being subdivided right now, then the road would come before the planning board as far as the road itself, but it isn't. That road exists, those lots exist, and the lot above it has legal access to it. So I don't think there's much issue there, but if Jeff would like to clear, or go ahead, Stuart.
Well,
Say the deed.
I don't know. I was at the earlier meeting, but so I'm flying a little blind here, but how do we know that there's legal access of record?
We
for
have
the-
record, we have the deed. Lori submitted the deed. You guys got that a couple days,
So it's-
probably a week ago. There's a
it's
deed.
It's recited in the deed?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I can ask Jeff. Jeff was actually the one that reviewed it, so.
Yes, the deed calls for the 16-foot wide right of way through the lot. And like you guys said, it goes beyond where our property up to serve Park is the name of the people up above. So there is a right of way listed in the deed and on the maps that are on file at the clerk's office. So
Um,
What do we have in terms of, do we have any review by the highway department on this?
we
In terms of
do.
those dimensions?
We asked that they went out and checked. They did the site visit. The only recommendation was the same thing that I said. We recommend that they get a road maintenance agreement, but because this is a subdivision and it's there, we can't request it. We can
See,
just recommend it.
This is the road and it goes up into a further property.
Correct.
Peter went out as the site rep and Scott Bowenstell went out at request of us and everything came back fine.
Okay, this is a public hearing, so let me ask if there's any members of the public that have questions for the applicant.
I don't think it's necessary to, you know, I think we're good.
The only people that are here is the DeGraffs. Do you want to speak? All right, you have to unmute
You're
yourself.
muted.
You have to unmute yourself.
You have to press the unmute.
Lower left-hand corner of the screen, there's a little
Okay,
mic.
there we go. Am I on now?
You are.
Yes.
Okay, good evening,
Please
folks. My name
Introduce
is Richie
yourself.
my name is Richie DeGraff, and I'm a property owner bordering the proposed subdivision. I have a bunch of concerns that I'm going to go over. Number one, water runoff is already a problem with destroying the driveway, which has been an ongoing issue for many years, with many attempts by different excavators to fix, which always fails. Cutting trees and widening the road almost 3 times the width would cause severe water runoff problems and basement flooding. That's my first concern. My second concern is, can someone subdivide a property that goes through a right of way to get to it? That is a concern of mine. Number 3, the original right of way to the property is not marked on the map. It goes up the barn road, past the chicken coop, up the side of the hill behind my mom's house, which is Lori's property. I can't understand why she is trying to use the right of way that was granted to my aunt and uncle for the house on the top of the mountain 50 plus minus years ago. That is not the access road to Lori's property. My next issue is my house and well are not even marked on the map, and the proposed septic is directly above it. There is a lot of wildlife that would be impacted with this subdivision, affecting rare owls, bear, deer, fox, rabbits, birds, etc. And then there is a major water issue on the mountain already. Drilling a well directly above my mom's and my properties would be a severe impact on the already existing situation. Number 7, with the shale and lead rock on the mountain, there would be every concerned issue with a septic system directly above our wells. Number 8, cutting the trees and digging to make the wide road would also cause loss of habitat for animals, which could harm the ecosystem, which is becoming worse every year with development on this mountain. Number 9, having been born and raised on this mountain, I'm 58 years old now, and my parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, and great-great-grandparents grew up on this piece of property. I have been over all of it many times in my life and no one see the potential major problems the subdivision would have caused. Thank you sincerely, me. And also being a builder carpenter for 40 years, I have some knowledge about construction, drainage, and septic and the lay of the land. That's what I have to say. Now you can speak to.
All right, and
Okay, sir. Well, we'll break it down. We'll get some other members to address some of the concerns you have.
Yes.
The issues about septic is county, and that's through county engineering and through the engineers.
Okay.
So that's completely through the engineering system. Now, obviously, it's supposed to be 100 foot away from a well. So
Yes.
but that's not before the planning board. We don't deal with
Okay.
county.
Because- All right, because the well is not even marked on the map of my property. And the access to the land, which is on Lori's property, is not even marked neither on the map. I find that very disturbing.
Well, clearly, it should be made quite clear that the septic system is 100 feet from the well. That's a county
Yes, yes.
code.
Can I address that, Peter?
Yeah, please, go ahead.
The septic system that's proposed is shown over 250 feet from your property line.
Okay.
Since it is uphill of your property, typically you'd want to have 200 feet
Mm-hmm.
from your well to that septic system, because if it were to fail, it would flow downhill. So
Correct.
the requirement is actually 200 feet in this case, and we have over 250 to your property. So since it's that far away, there
So
was
it's
no, the county didn't ask us to locate your well on the map.
Okay, well, I think it's a concern because the shale and the ledge rock of that mountain, it's gonna run right down there. It's a major concern to me.
Well, we did test holes and we found that the soil depth was suitable for a shallow trench septic system.
How deep was the test holes?
We had one that was 54 inches
Yeah.
to the north. No, I'm sorry, to the south. It would have been 54 inches, and the one to the north was 36 inches.
Okay, and so is that where the proposed septic system would be put?
The one where we had the deeper soil, the 54 inches, is where we're going to put it.
Which
We
is-
had the depth to do a full in-ground system, but we're doing a shallow trench because we want to stay a little bit higher
Okay.
above the rock.
So also, which is closer to my well? Because you're going
No,
down the hill.
it doesn't change the distance. It's still over 250 feet from your property line.
Okay.
know that? They don't know where your well is.
How do you know that when you don't know where my well is?
I'm saying to the property line, Mr. DeGraff, not to your well,
Okay.
unless your well is over your property line.
No, it's just off the edge of it,
Okay.
which makes me concerned because 50 feet's not a lot considering ledge rock and seepage. It could
Oh,
definitely be an issue.
No, 250 feet.
Yes, it has to be 200 feet away. It's
Correct.
250 feet away, you say. 50 feet's not a long distance on a downhill run for a problem.
No, but it exceeds the minimum that we're required to meet by the health
Minimum,
department.
yeah, the minimum. But it's also consideration of the mountainside and the land, I say would take into consideration, could be a different situation.
This is Brian. Can I ask a question to Jeff?
Sure.
Jeff, if this were your house, would you feel comfortable having the septic and the well with the downhill topography 250 feet? Or would you
Absolutely.
think You would?
Yes, I would.
You would? I don't think so, sir.
I was asked a question. I just answered.
No,
the question.
I'm just saying, it's easier for you to say absolutely, but you're not living below it.
Okay, but again, I have to remind everybody that this is a county engineering
Yes,
Peter?
I understand.
and that the planning.
Peter.
really
And
doesn't-
what was the perk test on it too? What did perk at?
Let me call up the plan on my computer quickly. It was in the primary area, it was 15 minutes per inch. On the reserve area, it was 6 minutes per inch.
15
And
minutes.
if I may, this is Brian again. Peter's right, this is county, so I think we've probably covered enough as we should on this, and that's gonna have to be worked out between the parties and the county.
Okay.
So,
All right,
okay.
I will contact the county and speak to them about it.
John, yes, go ahead, John.
I have another concern. The history of the top of that mountain, when we have had droughts in this town, is notoriously the worst place in this town for water.
Old wells.
What? I'm sorry, what was that?
Right now, the water at my mom's right now is very, very, very minimal. And anybody drilling a well above that could cause serious problems.
Well, I don't know about your mom's house. All I do know is that the top of that mountain has proven to be a major issue when it comes to water supply.
Yes, sir.
During the droughts in the 1980s, we had major issues up there with many people running dry, with wells at 600 feet running dry. So water supply to an additional structure does give me concern.
Yes, thank you, sir.
May I speak?
Yes, go ahead. Who is it?
It's Irene DeGraff.
Oh, hi. Yes. go
Hi.
ahead.
Now, my main concern over this whole proposed subdivision is number one, water. I have 3 gallon per minute, my well, when it was drilled in order to find water, and my vein comes down off of that hill. Any house, any building or anything that goes on up there is going to totally wipe me and my 2 neighbors out of water. My line comes right down off the middle of that hill. Now, if this proposed subdivision were to go through and Mr. whoever it is builds a house, is he going to drill me a new well to guarantee I have potable water? It's a major, major issue in this area, the water, other than runoff, which if they start widening roads is going to flood my basement all the more. But I do not have water in the well. It's surface water that will flood my basement.
Well, very valid point. I don't really, from the planning board's perspective, if it's a major subdivision with a lot of lots, then we can sometimes ask for, what they call drawdown tests. But I don't believe the planning board's ever done it on a single lot. John, maybe you could address it. I'm not sure where to go with that.
I'd like to ask Lori Elvisacker if you live there
Me? Yes, I do.
and you have a well.
Yes, sir.
Do you have any idea what the recharge rate is on that well? You live there alone?
I have guests and people, I just had family visiting. John, I really don't know. I know that I've never had a water issue in 22 years. And I know that historically I've heard that Ohio Mountain, is a tough place for water, but I walk all the time. I know my neighbors. There's some new houses, there's old houses up and down Ohio and Erie Hill. I don't know anybody in the recent, in the last 22 years that has run out of water. So I just, I'm not gonna say that it's myth, and I do know, when I was a kid in Woodstock, I would come visit my grandmother. Excuse me for anybody that doesn't like this thought, but she'd say, "Don't flush the toilet." You know, she was always worried about her well. I don't know what the depth is, but I know that that same house today doesn't have water problems. So I guess, you know, it is unfortunate to say, but there's different well depths, and maybe some well depths have changed over the years.
Okay,
I
can,
mean,
Well, if you, excuse me, if you remember Ron Torrey,
Who?
Ron Torrey, who lived on the Hale Mountain, he was a plumber.
Ron
He passed
Torrey.
away years ago.
I didn't know.
Okay, well, not far from you. He had a fairly deep well. At 600 feet, he ran out of water. And we had several other people in that area. Those were years when I was directly involved with the town. I was town supervisor. And we had major issues in the 80s with water on O'Hare Mountain. So this does give me concern. Any additional development on O'Hare Mountain gives me a lot of concern. And it's strictly a water issue for me.
Well, I can chime in, being next door. When Hector put our well in, he said, "You'll never run out of water." And we haven't, and we're on top of an aquifer. I'm only 170 feet down, and we have endless amount of water. But right, my neighbors right across, the Silanders, ran dry a few years ago. And they had to fill a new, and they're just 100 feet. Their well's like 150 feet from mine.
may I?
Excuse me, can I chime in?
Sure, go ahead.
My name is Marlon Park. I live on top, on the very top of the property we're talking about. And I have water issues. When I first moved there close to 30 years ago, with 3 little kids, I absolutely did not have enough water. This was, when did I move there? In the mid-90s, 1990s. And I had to drill a well. It's about 500 feet deep. And if we don't have enough rain, I run dry with a 500-foot well. So there is a problem for sure on Ohio Mountain with water. There's no question about it. What I have done, because I have a large house and I have a large family, is I put in a storage system where I have tanks in a shed so that the tanks fill up, and so I have extra water, and if I run out, I can buy water and fill the tanks, and that's how I manage. But it's really it's pretty bad. It's a nuisance, and so it's real. What everybody's talking about is really real. It's a real concern and it's a real issue. And I certainly wouldn't want to see my neighbors have no water. If this project can move forward with, trying to guarantee that it's not gonna, or maybe not guarantee, but if water supply goes low for them, that they can make do on it. They can make right on it and help it out, but they can't not have water while somebody else drills a well. That's just not fair. I mean, I'm not against the project, but so I'm not from that position, but I do know that water is a big issue. And I don't know if it would impact me. I mean, right now, I'm just surviving with it. I don't have plenty of water with 500 feet. I just don't. If August is dry, then I have to buy water and fill my tanks and scream. Well, when my kids were little, I have boys, they had to pee outside. And they thought it was legal to pee outside, And, when they were in town, they would pee in a corner and they got arrested. And I would get called by the police that my kids were peeing, and they didn't know. They didn't understand that it was not legal to do that because they grew up having to do that.
Oh, my.
So
Peter, I would like to chime back in again. It's very, very true what Marlon had said. And I believe, Lori, your water comes down way more down the Uri Hill direction than what ours does here. You're over in a westerly direction much further than what we are.
Actually, my well is closer to yours between my house and your house.
No, it's still
Now,
hundreds.
it's still,
hundreds of
it's
feet.
still 1,000 feet, whatever,
It's a long
600
ways.
feet away. So
Okay.
it's coming down from a different area, but where
Okay.
this proposed division is right just between Marlin, and that subdivision is right in the middle of where our water comes. And we even doused. I know a lot of people don't believe in it, but we doused because we knew water was a bad situation up here. And that was the best line that we could get for both of these houses that are right here and then the one down below. And that was by dowsing in order to have it drilled. And
Really?
I have gone dry, I think 3 times in the years. In fact, a few weeks ago, I had a small leak. I didn't realize it was happening. When I came home, my well was down, and that was just a small leak. It wasn't running water all day long.
It was just a toilet seeping
Yes, and it ran my well down
dry.
to the point where I had nothing.
Well, let me again express what I believe is the planning board situation, and John Lavelle can certainly address it. But the only times on the planning board I've ever known that we dealt with water supplies was when we had as I said, a subdivision, 3 or 4 or 5 lots, which is a lot of wells if you have 4 or 5 wells. And when they did that, we did ask for test wells to run steady to see if it would lower the neighbors' wells. But I've never heard of it done for 1 lot. So I don't know, John, maybe you have.
Well, whoops, sorry.
Peter, my concern on this subdivision is strictly water. And it's because of where it is, which has been notorious for 50 years that I know of, that it's been an issue with water. I think it would be prudent for the planning board to require some sort of proof that the water will not impact the neighbors, that a new well would not impact the neighbors.
I'd like to speak to that, please. I don't think anybody wants anybody to lose water that already has it. In particular, if there is some issue currently out there, but nobody can guarantee that drilling 1 well out there is going to not affect anybody. It's just not physically possible to do. Unfortunately, it's not like, it's not a simple thing to do. Like Peter said, for a 1 lot subdivision, that's not something the health department is even going to look at. They're looking at more like setbacks from septic systems. They're not going to require any kind of testing be done prior to the well actually being drilled. They do want to see what happens once the well's drilled. They'll want a copy of the well log. They'll want to see the yield, but they're not going to step in and say, how is this 1 well going to affect the neighborhood? It doesn't happen that way. So
Okay.
I guess my point is I hope the planning board recognizes that, there really isn't a simple way to determine what's going to happen if a well gets drilled in the particular location that's been chosen.
Okay.
This is Brian, if I may. To be honest with you, I'm not necessarily opposed to development on this. Just because that question is not asked by the county, for example, doesn't mean that it shouldn't. And I think there should be some consideration given the unique circumstances of this location. And yes, there's no guarantee, but there is a way to do something instead of nothing.
Judy has her hand up too. Go ahead, Judy.
I have it.
I want to bring up the map because Miss Park's lot is right there. And if you look at the direction of things, it's straight downhill.
Correct.
It's straight downhill. Now, I have lived with wells most of my adult life when I've had a house. It's been with a well. And I know very well that you can have two houses next door to each other that have entirely different water because they're going into different parts of the aquifer. And I've had that experience. That being said, the fact that this is straight downhill, I think it's due diligence to find out if there's likely to be a problem.
I agree.
Well, here's the question or the issue as far as I see. Never before, ever on the planning board, have I ever seen a trying to solve the issue of a well. I've never experienced that, except like I say, if it's a major subdivision. But other than that, I don't know that the planning board can require anything. I don't think we have any powers in that direction.
Well, I truly believe if there's a well drilled, the damage is done. There's no going back at that point. Once you break into that vein and disrupt the water, it's over. There's no going back.
But there's nothing in our town code that addresses that. Nothing. I've never heard of anything.
I understand that. I understand that, but it's
I
definitely.
don't know what we could ask the applicant to do because there's no guarantees one way or the other.
Shouldn't the town be looking out for other town people? And not just one person being allowed to disrupt and destroy, which this will do if that well hits the wrong spot. Then there's another issue with the right-of-way. Everybody says this is a right-of-way for everybody along there. That is not how it was ever done. That right-of-way was given to Bob Matson for the top house only. I live at the very corner. So I have to put up with every person, every fool that decides to race up and down there. I get all the dirt. I get all the noise. I get all the destruction. Now, the lady that wants to sell this subdivision has another way to access that, but she is deliberately not using that because it's going to impact her. It's going to make her have another person riding on her road.
Correct.
She owns that property. If she was decent about this, she would say, okay, I'll use my right of way. I'm not going to disturb other people. But she's smug. She's very smug. It doesn't affect her. None of this affects her.
Sir, but please let me remind you that issues that you are bringing up are civil issues. The planning board cannot decide whether it's a legal right of way or not. That is not in our purview. We cannot make that decision. If you have an issue with that, it's a civil issue.
Okay.
And to the issue, and that's the right of way. It's nothing to do with the planning board. As far as the well goes, I really appreciate what you're saying because I live here on the same mountain. And I
Yes,
just
you
have to be
do. I
lucky
know where
because I
you
have water. But let me say that this town issues building permits for houses that will all have wells, about 150 a year. And we can't tell everybody who builds a house that they can't build a house because it might affect the water.
No, but
Your question is valid, but you would have to take it to the town board because the planning board has no discretion in there.
okay.
None. Now,
But I do have something to say. When you have already a track record.
But that's a legal
drought.
issue that you're raising, sir. I
No,
agree.
it's not. No, it's not. This is a town issue.
But then take it to the
Which
town,
again-
take it to the town, but we cannot make a decision whether it's legal or not legal.
Peter's right, sir.
Correct me.
It's not-
Okay, I
Sir,
understand.
it's out of our purview.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you'll take
If, we just,
we'll
it's
take-
not in our power.
So we have to
don't
go, we go to the town board about the water issue
You
then?
could certainly, I certainly would. It's a very valid issue, but it's.
And what about the right of way? And
Go
what
ahead,
about the
start.
right of way that she's not showing on the map? That's hers.
It's not legally required.
It's not legally required. Well, is it legal for her to access a right of way and subdivide property?
Stuart has his hand up, but
Peter, I have a question. I've been following all the comments closely, and my question to Peter as the chair is, why are you saying that we don't have the authority to consider the water issues that are being raised? Why isn't that within our purview?
well, it's a good point, Stuart, and John probably can answer it better than me, but all I can say is that the only time that the planning board reviews water supplies is if it's a major subdivision. Because every single house that's built in this town every year would every neighbor could say the same thing.
Yeah, understand.
Every neighbor could say, hey, they're building a house over there. I don't want them to build a house because it might affect my
Right,
water.
but so if you take that approach and don't address water, then eventually, if you have a place like this mountain or some other section of the town where there appears to be more serious water issues than others, then eventually you're gonna have a problem where you're gonna have 20 parcel owners coming to the town saying, why did the planning board allow this depletion to occur over all this time? I don't know whether we have the authority or not, because I don't have the code book in front of me. I'm not in my office, I apologize, but I'm wondering if we're still in the public hearing, but before we close out the evening on this case, whether you might want to consider adjourning the public hearing and then deferring the matter to the next meeting. And see, my thought would be to have our attorney come in, if we can get a modest escrow for that, to let us know what our parameters are, because I'm not convinced that we don't have the authority to address this. This is what we're here for, and to look out for the impacts for neighbors and so on. And I'm not saying that it's a deal breaker here or not. I'm still thinking about it, but there are legitimate concerns that people have recognized. So I don't want to make a snap decision on this. I'm just trying to raise a procedural way, if the board would consider that, to have some kind of adjourn it to the call of the chair, or adjourn the hearing to call the chair, or close the hearing and then adjourn the case to the call, something like that, so that we can be sure of what our authorities are and what the best course might be.
Well, there's two things, Stuart. When addressing water in this town is a major issue that we've been dealing with in the wetlands and water course, because wetlands are where we get our water from, and that's what goes into the aquifers. And we've been trying to protect those areas to keep the town's water supplies. But there is nothing in front of in the code, in the book, or anything that says that someone who owns a piece of property can't drill a well. There's absolutely no law. There is nothing that can prevent somebody from drilling a well on their property. Nothing. Unless John, Sean's knows more than I about this, but.
Yeah. Peter, can I say something, please? Peter, you're absolutely right. If we weren't in here for a subdivision and Lori wanted to drill a well, just to drill a well for her house in that particular location, she could do that, and nobody could stop her. So you're right that people have the right to drill a well.
That's just the law of the land. If you can drill a well on your land, and I agree with the DeGraffs, it's a critical problem. it's a real problem for them if they run out of water, but that's not something that we, the planning board, has any control over. It is.
Peter,
Yeah.
I'm listening to a comment. Just if Lori would like to drill a well, fine. She's not, where her house is, where her well would be, would not impact 3 properties. This one up here on top of the hill drilling is going to impact 3 homes.
I understand what you're saying. I clearly do. But if everybody that comes before the planning board to build, what we just had someone just now in the scenic overlay, we just gave them a permission to go ahead. They're going to drill a well. What if all those neighbors on that mountain said, no, you can't let them drill a well there because it might affect us?
Well,
you can't. Where are you going to end that?
It's understandable in certain situations, but when you're on a mountainside and there's water issues versus another piece of property where somebody else wants to build, where it's not on the side of a mountain where there is water issues, is a totally different concern.
Well, I agree with your concern, but we do have other cases that we're going to have to move on. I agree with your concern, but it's something you should take up with the town board, because if they want to give the planning board some kind of powers to deal with that, it's fine. But
This
at
is
the moment,
Brian.
go ahead, Brian.
Mays. Sorry. And I'll try to make this quick. I am, first, I'm sensitive to our chair who continuously has to navigate these types of situations and try to explain where we have purview and where we don't have purview. And so I think we need to be considerate of that. I agree with Stuart. I think we should adjourn this session, and I think we should start to figure out if we have, I'm going to say, jurisdiction or some influence over these situations, because whether we like it or not, everything is changing with climate change.
I agree.
Yeah, and so, and then I'm sensitive to the property owner who has every right to develop their property, and there's one house on 6 acres, so that makes sense. But I'm very, very sensitive to the neighbors in the situation. So there are legitimate concerns here. We're not going to solve it tonight, so I motion to close the public hearing and take all these things in consideration. I would advise the neighbors to talk to the county and start to find some type of remedy or moving forward. I'd also suggest that everybody, including Laurie, talk and see if there could be some type of resolution on this, because that's the way it's really going to get solved without more problems. And I think that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, I gotta say, yeah, go ahead, Stuart, or actually, James has got his hand up. I
Hey
have
there.
James.
I just wanted to say that I'm very sensitive about water issues myself too. And a few years ago, I live at the bottom of a hill with like about 20 houses above me, if not more. And I accidentally drained my well a couple summers ago with a broken garden hose. And I was freaked out. It was middle of the summer, it had been dry. And my plumber just turned to me and said, "Oh, you live at the bottom of the hill. You'll have your tank filled again in a minute." And he was right. In an hour, my tank was completely full again. I don't want to claim I'm a scientist on this, but droughts start at the top. And so a well above you, Mr. Graff, I'm not sure that's going to take water away from you, because he will lose his water before you. It collects water, but it's still, but when it's a rainy season, when it's the normal raining, it's coming downhill and you're getting the benefit more than he is. The woman, Ms. Park, who talked about being at the top of the hill and has no water all the time, I'm sure she doesn't, because she's at the top. And so I'm not saying I'm right on this completely, but I'm just wondering if it would help if you could find somebody who is more of an expert in topography and water flow, because you know, I share your concerns. I'm just only thinking that you might be okay, because water could, I don't know. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you.
Well, James, the interesting thing is that the planning board does have a purview in looking at groundwater, surface water runoff. So that if somebody's building driveways or whatever they're doing, and cutting trees, and that causes water to go down the surface and onto somebody else's property, that comes before the planning board. But never have I ever heard of a well come before the planning board. And I think if you started tonight, I have to say that the applicant has got the upper hand, because you can't make a ruling that doesn't, it's going to affect everybody. The next case that comes before us, we're going to say we're going to postpone it because you might have a water issue. We'll never get anywhere like that. Judy, go ahead.
Well, John's got his hand up first.
Oh, sorry, John.
No, Peter, the reason I brought it up was because of the historical nature of O'Hare Mountain and the fact that it has notoriously been dry. It really has. You may be very fortunate where you are, but I know a lot of people on that mountain that have run dry, and that just is a concern. And I understand your position when it comes to the fact that we normally do not review that. I also heard that we should be maybe talking to the Department of Health. I don't know if there's anybody there with enough tenure to realize when we had a drought that really dried up all of the top of O'Hare Mountain. I mean, it was serious, and it went on for more than a year. And it can happen again. That's my concern.
It's a good
Safeguards
concern.
is all I'm looking for.
It's a real concern. I just don't see how the planning
Yeah,
board
I hear you.
can make a ruling in this one case. I just don't see it. I mean, like I just said, we had a case just before us that the neighbors could have come and said, oh, we don't want you to prove that because we're downhill if they drill a well. Well, I just don't see it. Judy, go ahead, and then we got to close this hearing.
I want to suggest that Steve Winkley, who has evaluated aquifers in this town for decades, might be a resource for the graphs. He may know, there may be maps that, I mean, we've got maps of aquifers in other parts of town, but a mountain is not an aquifer. Nevertheless, he knows that. He is a water, I don't know, remember the word for it, but he's a hydrologist. He's a professional hydrologist.
Winkley, Steve Winkley.
The whole thing is a very interesting study. I've looked at it myself. Sometimes you'll find springs on one mountain. Well, for instance, the Como property, those springs are coming from Ohio Mountain.
Peter?
Right.
I mean, that's where the water's coming from. And so at any rate.
But the question before us is whether we can make a decision. And I support the idea of tabling this for one meeting and seeing what people can find out.
Motion to close the hearing.
I would like to amend that to an adjournment, not
Yes.
closure.
An adjournment.
Thank you.
Well, I seem to be overruled there. I don't believe it. I think that's an absolute wrong thing to do because I just don't, you're setting a precedent that the next person's going to say the same thing.
We haven't made the
I don't see how
decision
you're gonna
yet.
Solve it. If someone buys a house on a property on a mountain, it's their chance to drill a well. They get water or not. If they don't get water, that's their problem. There's no guarantee. There's no guarantee. I think the town, and John's absolutely right, and members of the board are right, and the DeGraffs are right, the town board should look into the whole issue of the water supply, but it's not something we can rule on.
Okay, and also the right of way, is that something we should look at?
That's a civil issue. It's
Civil.
There's a
Okay.
legal
Okay.
right of way to
This
that
is
property.
all new to me, so I don't really know nothing about it. So I appreciate everything you tell me, what directions to go, because I don't know.
If you have a dispute over the legal access, that's something lawyers and judges deal with. We
Okay.
can't, we have
Okay.
no power to
All right,
make that
thank you.
decision.
Okay, what about the runoff? You said that you do have the right to look at the runoff. The runoff that comes off of that mountain that destroys part of our drive,
My
puts
basement.
water all into my fields.
Our basements.
My
Well,
basement?
I
and
agree
this
with you.
is
I totally
happening,
agree with you.
And as soon as you allow them to widen that,
And cut trees.
if she goes on her own right of way, that eliminates that.
But that's a
that mean-
legal issue.
Yeah, I understand that, but you said that you would that you have the right to look into that. So what is it?
No, well, I was talking about runoff. That's in a case where we do logging, when we do logging permits, where you have major logging going on and major logging trails that are going through stream courses. That's when we look into it. This,
We
the clearing for a 1,400 square foot house is not.
Yeah, and the chair has been very generous with allowing commentary time. We
Yes,
we
you
need to
have.
close.
Thank you.
Thank
We
you
need to
very
close
much.
this.
You certainly have. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Well, I'm gonna honor the board's will and we will
Yeah.
postpone it. It's totally against my belief. I think you're making a legal and drastic mistake. But if the
Peter,
board, if.
We haven't
board
voted on
wins-
the motion is open. We haven't voted on the motion to adjourn the public hearing to the next date. Do we want to take a vote on that? We haven't voted on
Yeah,
it.
go ahead. Let's pull a vote. Yeah.
Who's in favor of the motion by Brian, which I second, to continue this hearing, to adjourn this public hearing to the next available date?
Wait. John had motioned to adjourn the public.
Yeah, well, I said continue,
Which-
adjourn. yeah.
Right, so it's done tonight.
But it can be reopened.
No,
It's not closed.
no,
All right,
no.
you
The
lost-
motion is not to close the hearing, it's to adjourn the hearing.
Right.
Continue the hearing. So it remains
All right.
open. Because once you
Tell me
close
what
the
you wanna
hearing,
do.
there are certain time limits, I think, that are put on the planning board to take certain action, a certain number of days. And why should we, do that? rather just hold the hearing open and continue it to the next available date. That's my understanding of what.
That's my understanding of what's being proposed.
Is that right? Is that consistent, John, with what you?
Consistent with, yes, yes.
So who's in favor of continuing the public hearing to the next available date?
Brian, we can't see your hand.
Yes.
So we have James, myself, Ms. Carmen, Mr. Laval, and Brian are all in favor of that. And I think Peter is a nay. Peter?
Opposed.
Peter's opposed. So I think that's all the board members here. So the motion carries 5-1.
Sorry, Peter.
I don't know what you're gonna find out between now and the next hearing.
You may be
I don't know
right.
I don't think.
I don't know what
any
you'll
of us-
find out,
any of
but it
us-
hasn't changed in 100 years in this town. But go for it. Okay,
Thank you, folks, for your time.
all right, guys. So that meeting is adjourned to the call of the chair.
Should I make a motion on public urination now? Sorry, I digress.
Okay, let's get on to our sketch
Yes, we
plan
do.
reviews here. This will be more exciting, believe me. We have the Lineman Institute of Northeast, Inc., Special Use Permit 22-0666. And this is a sketch plan review of a special use permit application to operate a profit school with dorms located in the R8 zoning district at 1700 Sauk Hill Road in Woodstock. And the rep is Donald Liking. And would you please tell the board what is it you'd like to do?
Well, basically the same thing I wanted to do last year, run a school in the old Xena Elementary School. And what has come about since last year, as far as the dorms are concerned, is with the adjoining towns having such a large housing crisis. Our operations were in Saugerties. We own several houses in Saugerties to accommodate housing. So moving to Woodstock, we're either going to buy more houses in Woodstock or more houses in Kingston, which just declared a housing emergency. So we have the room. We felt it was under zoning, under accessory use for permitted use. So I'm hoping that it's a two-part thing. The special use permit for the for-profit school, I sort of thought was part of the original process. Come to find out, trying to get my CO and stuff like that from the building department, that's not the case. So if there's any way we can at least expedite, because if I'd have brought it before the board last year and checked that little box that said special use permit, it would have been granted with my public hearing also.
Well,
The dorms, like I said, we can go two routes through the special use permit for the dorms or through zoning, because my architect, we feel that it is a permitted use of the building.
well, I would certainly think so. If it's an educational facility, it's like a college has dorms. It's not a change of use. The college has dorms, it's dormitories for education. So I don't see an issue with it. Judy, go ahead.
Are you basically going to convert some of the interior space into housing?
It would be the upstairs of the main part of the school. That's correct.
Okay, and you've got sufficient bathrooms and so on?
We have plenty of bathrooms, and I've gone with the Ulster County Water Department as far as water usage. I'm considered, I forget exactly their nomenclature for what I'm considered as far as public, non-transient public water supply.
Mm-hmm.
So we went through, they came and, we're working on the final approval with the Ulster County Board of Health. So yes, we have the.
And I suppose they've got a
The school has
cafeteria, too.
about 150 toilets right now. So we're going to lessen the amount of toilets that are in the school.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Peter,
Board members have, John has a question. Yes, John?
yes. Asbestos abatement,
That's been done.
complete. You have a clean bill of health with the Board of Health.
I do. The asbestos abatement was done by the previous owner.
Oh, wonderful. Okay. Excellent to know.
Any other members have questions? Stuart?
Yeah, I want to welcome the applicant back. And I see the poles and the grids and all, and these days of storms, it somehow feels, I don't know if this is logical or not, but reassuring that this new generation of
our students are having great success. You know, like we talked about before, the reward over this whole thing is, you know, we have 200 students out there working.
Stuart, are you envisioning a side hustle for yourself?
Climbing poles.
I didn't mean to get off on a little tangent. I just wanted to welcome Donald, but I do have a question. This raises a kind of an additional dimension that I hadn't thought about before for this property, because it was previously an elementary school. The kids would go home and they'd be quiet at night. So if you're going to have of age students essentially living there, I'm just wondering what are going to be impacts on the neighborhood if they're partying at night, things like that.
I can tell you. Okay.
Does add a dimension.
Right. So what we have now, Stuart, is I own several multiple two-family homes in the village of Saugerties. So some groups we might tussle with a little bit, but in the beginning they're not frat houses, right? They're inspected weekly. The students understand. They're given if something goes wrong, you're just going to be removed from school. Right. So
would you consider having house rules that you might share with us? Regulating,
I could get you the list of the house rules from the office people. Absolutely. Yeah. And like I said, they go on a weekly inspection of the houses, and we have standards that the students have to live up to.
Yeah.
Our intention with the dorms is we're going to actually probably hire one of the students as like an RA, give them their own place. And if everything works out in the end, we'll give them their rental costs back. Right? So basically give them free rent to stay for 4 months while they're there, as long as they keep track of things.
And is it going to be a dorm all year round or only certain months?
Oh, just during class. We're in class. So we're in class, we have 3 4-month sessions, 15 weeks. So what do we have? We have about 8 weeks off. So I have 8 weeks of vacation.
In the winter?
Not all of it in the winter, no. No, each class has a break in between. Some are 3 weeks and some are 2 weeks in between.
So
we go right through the winter.
In the snow?
Yeah, we're out there in the snow. Yeah, the rain. We're out there in the rain. That's why I tell you, if you can't work in the inclement weather, it's not really probably a job for you.
Yeah, true enough.
Well,
did that answer your question, Stuart? I'm sorry.
It does. I just want to suggest that if there's any ability to have like behavioral rules, I'm trying to foreclose complaints from people who live near the property.
And like I said, I have neighbors that are literally right next to each other in the village of Saugerties. Right, I have 4 big 2-family houses with 15 people in a house, and we like I said, occasionally the neighbor calls and says this happened, and we take care of it right away.
Okay.
They have our number. They all have our phone number, right? They call us direct. This is going on, so we've had classes where we had to drive over there right in the middle of the night. Right? This isn't acceptable.
Can I ask you one other question? And this is really not about the dorm, but you have a line of poles now that are built on the parking lot side of the bumper that protects, the parking area from the area. Okay. Are those electrified?
No.
Okay. See, because you had like a transformer.
No, that's what our students do. They pretend that they're linemen. Right, they hang transformers, they build poles. No, we put that up every class. It'll be gone. Actually, this class that we're currently in.
I'm not complaining about it. I just want the question I want.
Yeah, no, we put it up, and it's a little bit more with the bucket trucks. We keep the trucks out of the field.
Yeah.
Right. So actually, the parking lot. I'm hoping in between these classes, the parking lot's getting redone. That's the hope in August.
Okay.
We keep our contractors on schedule.
I have no further questions.
Okay. Thanks.
Anybody else on the board have any questions for them?
Yeah, this is Brian, if I may.
Yeah, Brian.
Or does somebody want to go before me?
No, go ahead, Brian.
Remind me, please, how many students will be in the dorm every given trimester, quadmester?
With the housing, we're averaging somewhere between, I want to say 25 to 30 students. Some classes are a little bit less, some are a little bit more.
And so
now, we're talking about if I move everything to Woodstock, I would purchase, I would be looking for like 5 2-family houses in Woodstock.
Could you say that again, please?
If I move all my operations to Woodstock, I would be looking to, instead of the dorms, I would have to purchase like 5 2-family houses is what I would do.
Okay.
So that's sort of what we're trying not to do.
Okay, and then in terms of, is that then using 50% of the building, 30% of the building?
No, that's 10%. The building is 50,000 square feet. We're proposing 10,000 square foot of dorms.
Do you have any plans to expand?
No, not the dorms. No,
Nothing.
the school's gonna stay. We'll give the students access to the gym. We're actually putting a weight room down in one of the locker rooms by the gym, a small arcade room, stuff like that.
Okay. And forgive me if I'm incorrect on this. Was your property, was it involved with the Renegade cow situation?
That's right. Yeah, she actually walked home.
And so
all on her own.
Yeah, talk to me about a little bit. I mean, how are you planning on having animals on property?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, they're pets.
Yeah, I do animal rescue and animal rights, and I'm here to tell you that there were a number of folks in my orbit where we spent considerable time dealing with that situation, and so that was problematic as far as we were concerned.
Yep, I agree. Anytime one of those things get out, it's problematic. I've helped plenty of my cattle buddies chase cows.
So what do you, since is that part of your plan, or what's going on there? Talk to me about that.
Well, it's zoned for agriculture, so I'm not, we're trying to currently look for our own bigger, larger piece of property to build a newer house and move our pets we have the rest of our pets at our house, our goats and chickens and all those. I have no intentions on moving them to the school.
Okay, so it's livestock, it's not companion animals, so it's.
What do you mean companion animals? They are companion animals.
Companion animals are dogs and cats,
Well, I
livestock.
consider my cows companion animals, but okay.
Yeah, okay. No, I'm just trying to, and so how many are you talking about there, please?
Brian, is this on this property or some different property?
No, it's on mine.
Yeah.
On the school property you're talking
Yes.
about?
Yep.
That's what I'm asking.
Okay, go ahead. Thank you.
Judy?
I'm just saying, who knew?
Any other members of the board have questions for the Lionsman's Institute? Well, if not, then I guess we'll get them set up for a hearing, right, Melissa?
Yep, that's up to you guys. If you want to schedule a public hearing, yep, we can do that.
We don't
But I
have
think
to.
to Stuart's point, maybe because the neighbors might want to be in on that.
We did do it before under this pretense. John,
I
what's
think
that?
it's warranted.
It's not a pretense, it's warranted. I think we should have a public hearing.
Yeah, I think so.
Is there any way we can move the special permit for a for-profit school forward? Because it's really holding me up with everything. I mean, if I had that special use permit, I could have my certificate of occupancy. I can't do anything because I don't have that special use permit.
If I may, I think Stuart asked that question about a year ago, and whether it's going to be a for-profit or nonprofit, and you said at the time it was going to be a for-profit. So it sounds to me like that's transitioned, and so you have to work through the process, right?
Well,
It is for-profit. Nothing's changed.
Right, it's always been, so I think what happened was, maybe there's a little bit of confusion here. Earlier, I think the early application was not for a special use permit. Right?
But it's the same exact,
And someone- right.
application
Someone
with
is-
another box checked.
Right, but someone in the audience I remember that hearing, and someone in the audience says, this needs a special use permit.
Right, and
I
somebody
remember
from the
looking-
board actually said that states that schools are permitted uses no matter what.
Yeah, well, that was me, because I checked the chart, and it doesn't matter whether they're, both for profit and nonprofit schools are both permitted.
Right, so that's what I'm asking
But now-
for, is the
and now
special
what
use
hap-
permit
I
to
understand.
operate
Hold
a
on, let me finish my
for-profit school.
statement. So what happened was, now we have it, and that prior application was referred to us and screened and referred to us by the former ZEO. Now we have a new building inspector, ZEO, who feels that for what you're asking for, now there needs to be an SUP, and it's been presented to us as a kind of combined request, a special use permit for the activity there and for a dorm, because the dorm wasn't mentioned the last time.
Okay,
So
so
it's for us together. I don't know how we can split
how
them
about if we
apart.
turn it into because when I came to the board before, it was for a school with an outdoor training facility.
Right.
Was my site plan review. Like I said, if somebody would have said, Don, you're a for-profit school, if you check this special use permit box, we can take care of both things at the same time.
But it wasn't.
It was up to the CEO to ask you to do that, and now the ZEOs have changed.
I just don't know how we can split them off, but I think we can
Well,
probably.
can I just
hearing
remove
at
the
the next-
dorms from my tonight's hearing? The dorms are zoned. I can go through zoning for the dorms.
You're asking me?
I'm asking whoever.
My concern is that.
I just, the only concern, the concern we had last time with my permit that should have been a special use permit at the same exact time, the problem that we had with the neighbor was the poles, right? I made an arrangement with the neighbor to move the poles further out of her site. That was her only concern. Had nothing to do with me operating a for-profit school.
Right, but sir, let me interrupt you for a second because time is running late. Dorms were not discussed.
I can release the dorms. I have no problem releasing the dorms. Should not have,
me. I want to finish.
Should have not been on that form.
Please don't interrupt me. Let me get my thought out, okay? The dorms weren't mentioned in the initial go-around, so the public had no idea that dorms were going to be considered. Now there's been a filing with our office and with the building department asking for a special use permit, including for dorms. So the dorms have been mentioned. It's out there in the public. It's a public item. And I think that, you know, it's not an answer to say that you're going to now file a new application or amend your application to take it away, because it's in there. And it really requires a public hearing, and you're confirming that you want to go forward with the dorms, and it's out there to the public. I don't see how we can't hold a public hearing and have comment.
I'm not asking to skip the public hearing for the dorms. That's not what I'm saying.
Maybe I misunderstood you.
So let's schedule a public hearing for the special use permit, which includes the dorms.
Right.
Yeah.
Keep it as is.
As is, right.
So Don, we can't issue a special use permit until after we have that public hearing.
Right, so let's set them up for a public hearing and we'll get them doing both.
Well, can I remove the dorms from my public hearing? Do I have to?
Why would you want to
put
do
another
that?
Application?
No.
Because
Why
it's
would you
through
want it to
zoning.
be
I can go through
included?
zoning to get the dorms. I don't need to come back to the planning board for that. I don't know why it was written on the application.
But you
It was
need a
put on the
public
application.
hearing for it.
It was on the application because the CEO put it on there, then we have. to-
No, I filled out the application.
Oh, okay.
I don't know why it
They
said.
approve it.
We have
I'm
to
sorry?
deal with what's in front of us, and I'm sorry, but my position, just speaking for myself, is that we have to hold a public hearing on.
So do I put in another application for just the special use permit is my question.
Your application's
Strike-
already
strike
before
it.
us.
Just do it as is. Right now, it's profit school and the dorms and doing.
Right,
it
but the
this way-
special use
Don,
permit for the
listen.
for-profit school has been holding me up for like
know.
6 months now.
But Don,
I can't transfer. I'm paying two mortgages for 2 buildings,
but the
right? I
CEO
can't
isn't
transfer
gonna let you,
locations until I have my CO.
Don, the CEO isn't gonna let you move forward until you get that SUP.
And you
Not
could get
gonna
mad
let
at,
the CO.
yeah, you could get mad at us if you want, but
I'm
this
not
is your
mad at-
plan.
I'm not mad at you at all. Somebody, and you people work for me. Somebody should have told me last year when I went through this process, Don, if you check this box, you'll take care of everything at the same exact time.
Well, it sounds like you're mad, sir.
All right, but we have another case, so let me just finish this off. For one thing, please understand that we have a new CEO. So what might have been presented a few months ago, we have a new CEO. So
That's what I'm finding out. You're
The
absolutely
other
right.
thing is that Melissa will schedule you for a public hearing. And at that public hearing, we'll vote on a special use permit for a profit school. If you want the dorms in there or not, is up to you, but that's what.
Might as well do both. It's how it's presented. It's how it came. It's how the referral came. Don, let's just get through the public hearing and then you'll have your piece of paper and the ZEO will give you the CO.
Okay, we good on that?
Yeah.
All right, everybody good? We're gonna schedule a public hearing?
Yep.
Okay.
We'll try and expedite it. Let's try and expedite it.
Yeah. Don, I'll be in touch tomorrow or Monday and I'll
Okay.
schedule it as soon as I can. I'll get the stuff out, okay?
Okay,
right.
Don, sorry that it took so long, Don, but we'll get you there, okay? All right, next case is a 705. Is a Woodsy Mac LLC. This is a sketch plan review of a special use permit application for a timber harvest in the R3 zoning district located at 70 Easton Lane and Blues Quarry in Woodstock. And the SBL is 27.23151. And the representative is Anthony Del Vescovo. Anthony, if you would like to tell the board what you would like to do.
Sure. So, as you said, my name is Anthony Del Vescovo. I'm a consulting forester, certified with Society of American Foresters, and also a member of the New York State Cooperating Consulting Foresters with New York DEC. I'm working for John and Stacy McCormick, who have a property there on Easton Lane, listed as Woodsy Mac LLC. The property has been enrolled in the New York State Section 480A for about 40 years now. I originally was the forester for Alexander and Annabelle Easton, who the lane was named after. And it changed hands several times over the years. And as the original forester who wrote the plan, the McCormacks got a hold of me and asked me if I could take over the forest management work for them. And you're probably familiar with 480A in that these properties are enrolled under this basically commitment to forest management. And DEC is the overseeing authority for these forest management plans. And they're supposed to comply with a forest management schedule that helps grow the timber on the property. That's the way the 480 law was written, was that you don't subdivide your property, you manage the timber, and you get an 80% reduction in your assessment on enrolled acreage. So we did a 5-year update and study on the property this past year and determined that it's in need of thinning so that the trees can continue to grow at a good rate as they have been. And DEC has approved all that. And so that's where at this point now to get this special use permit so that we could proceed with the actual work.
Okay.
I've got that map up.
Okay, well, let's go through our usual procedure. As you know, when the Town of Woodstock Planning Board reviews timber harvest procedures, we go by the DEC best use management practices.
Mhm.
That's what we do. And then we rely on foresters like yourself to give us the information, because none of us are foresters. I'm very familiar with the property. I actually delineated the wetlands on it. And I know that it was a tree farm, as you said, a registered tree farm. So I guess the question is, what kind of trees are you going to be cutting? It's just for thinning, or is this for timber?
No, it's for both. It's
Both.
a combination of, as I explained, I think on my paperwork, a harvest of some of the mature trees. I think I have 555 mature trees marked on the 87-acre area. And we also have trees marked for, we call it timber stand improvement. So there are trees that would be removed to give more space to what we would call crop trees and better trees to continue growing. And the DEC wants us to ensure that there's always a good timber crop growing. That's the intent of the 480A law. So that's what we're trying to accomplish.
Okay, well, the planning board's usual concern in forestries, and in this particular one, are the wetlands. And of course, good management practices requires that the skidders don't work when the ground is soft, that only when it's frozen or dry in the summer, so that it doesn't mess up the wetlands. And this land has a lot of wetlands. It's more than Judy just showed on that screen because those are just federal wetlands.
Can I say something to that? I checked with the natural heritage mapping, and there are no state regulated wetlands on the property.
I know that.
These are small wetlands, and by no means, I've been all over the property, by no means does it classify, a few acres classify as maybe having some wetland species, but even those have trees completely covering the landscape. So,
Yeah, you can see that in the aerial photographs.
Yeah, well, that's what you're seeing, Judy, right there is a quarter of the wetlands. Those are federal. Town wetlands are considerably more, and there's the actual map I produced after delineating the wetlands, and it was located. There's a lot of wetlands on the property. Anyway, the point simply being that good management practices for timber harvest, we need to make sure that that it's done in such a way. If you walk the land, whoever on the planning board is going to be a site rep, you'll see that it's you can see the little creeks that she's showing now, but there's quite a bit of wetland.
Well, these are the buffers.
Right.
And these are the Hudsonia wetlands, Peter. They're not just the
Right.
federal.
But anyway, the point simply being that we rely on best management practices, that the turbot harvest is done when the conditions are best.
Right.
So do we need a couple of site reps, or at least one that somebody wants to go out and take a look at this property?
I will.
Oh, fantastic. Great. Because we need some, as I say, I'm familiar with it.
I wish I could, but I can't. But the road is out here,
Yeah.
so you've got quite a lot of ground to cover before you have access to a road.
Well, there's roads, logging roads already.
Logging roads, yeah.
It has an established network of roads from the 1980s.
Yeah, I can see some of them here probably. These
That
are probably roads.
If I could just say, these roads were laid out by myself, and I've had over the years 3 different logging outfits on the property that I was the forester that oversaw the job. And we laid the roads out purposely to avoid wet areas. And I think you'll see that if you go walking out there. We don't have roads going through those wetland areas that you have pointed on this map.
Now, just out of curiosity, this is an escarpment along here. So do you also timber up in this part?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
So just so you know, we reviewed, there was a subdivision application for this same property for about 10 lots that we reviewed. And the reason it didn't go through was because we couldn't get past all the wetlands. So anyway.
Well, they would be breaking their 488 commitment, and they'd be subject to pretty high penalties if they did that.
Right, they knew they were going to lose their privilege on that, but anyway, the subdivision couldn't happen because of the wetlands.
Peter, I
So-
apologize. I have to step off. I'm sorry. I have something's come up I got to deal with. I apologize. You still have a quorum.
Okay, Stuart.
Take
See
care,
you later.
Stuart.
Bye-bye.
All right. So anyway, what we'll do is we're going to do a site visit, and then we'll bring you back and apply for the special use permit.
Anthony, are the trees marked? Like if Brian goes, will he be able to see what your plan
Yes.
is?
Yep, the trees are all marked.
Just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
All right.
Forgive me, please. I'm sorry, Peter. How many acres are we talking about here?
It was 87, or I can't remember.
The property is 87, but 72 acres are being proposed for harvest because there are those wet areas, and there also are the buffer zones along the boundary. So that takes away a considerable amount of acreage, actually. along
Okay,
the edges.
last question. I thought, and I could be wrong on this, that there was a large property that went up for sale in that general area. This is not it, right?
No.
Okay,
This is right next door to Spam Acres, just south of it.
got it.
And
Okay,
this,
cool.
this property, Brian, just a little history, we have had timber harvest previously with this property to keep their 480A, and which is done through the DEC. So Anthony is here because this is what's expected of them to keep their 480A.
Got it. Thank you.
Yes.
And under the
Just
best
a little
management-
layman's terms.
and under best management practices, again, the corduroy bridges, are very important to us, that the corduroy bridges are put in for the skidders and then taken out afterwards and cleaned up. So basically what you'll find out when we do our special use permit is we're going to ask for a deposit so that the site is cleaned up, with the landing area where you do your landing is cleaned up.
Performance
Standard
bond.
for us, that's all.
Yeah, we already hold a performance bond on the contract to
Okay.
begin with. And we plan on using portable bridges.
Oh,
So
okay.
we probably won't even, there might be some places where corduroy would be used, but other places, we don't even want to touch the stream bed or the drainage bed and just put a portable bridge right over it.
Good.
Temporary, that would come out.
The planning board actually put that first culvert in when we did the original review of that property.
I see that because when the Eastons owned it, that was not there. Yeah.
All right, so you're set. We're gonna get you an appointment to come back for a special use permit.
Okay.
All right, after our rep takes a look, and then we'll get you.
I'll
set
be in
up.
touch, Anthony. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Melissa.
Okay, so under unfinished business, we have to make a motion to approve the draft resolutions for Yokurski and Bui, which is special use permit 22-665. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
All right.
Aye.
Okay, well, obviously, we're not gonna do Yubasakers now, so the next thing we have is the HOTF proposed zoning revisions.
I can make this quick, Peter. I know we've spent a lot of time tonight. Basically, I sent you guys emails. I am working with Nan to schedule, it looks like the first or second meeting in September, to dedicate you guys to be with Nan, because that was what we are allowed, what we are presented with. We're gonna work with Nan. Judy and I agree that Nan is the know-all of no, and I think she can answer our questions and give us some comfort and let us be complacent with moving forward with these zoning revisions. So that
And identify any issues that we have that need to be addressed in a revision.
John?
Did Nan have anything to do with the original authoring of any of this?
He wrote it.
Then how can he review it?
Who?
You said Nan.
Nan Stoltenberg is a planner. She's a professional planner. She was hired by the town to work with the Housing Oversight Task Force.
Did
She
she have
drafted it.
anything to do with the drafting of this document?
Yes, she drafted it.
Then how can you have that person be our reviewer?
John, I think we're talking about a different kind of review here. The question is what questions the planning board members have about how this would work in practice. So having someone who knows it better than anyone else is logical. If we see issues based on what she tells us, then we might want to talk to Matt, or we might want to talk to our attorney.
this is from our original, we were asked to give
For comments.
feedback. We were asked for comment on the HOTF proposal zoning revisions. This stemmed from what we asked for, which was Matt to help. And because Nan is already on board and being paid by the town, that's who we're going to use. And our questions, I have a list. I think Peter has a list. Judy has a list. We have some things. We'll make time and meet via Zoom during the meeting with Nan.
Let me say something. Having worked with her for, it's got to be a very close, it's at least more than half a year. I think she is not a defensive person. She's not a biased person. She's trying to do the job the way that she understands the town wants things to work. And any questions that we have about how this would work, she's the best person to ask because she knows the language better than anyone. And I have tried to proofread it. I can't hold all of it in my head. But she's a professional planner. She knows how it works. She's worked with a bunch of other towns on this kind of rezoning.
And she's been very responsive. I email her, she emails me right back. She's willing to meet with us. She wants to talk to you guys.
We fully expect that there are going to have to be some changes. I mean, we being the Housing Oversight Task Force, we fully expect that there will have to be some changes. So what we need from the planning board, what the Housing Task Force needs from the planning board, and I'm us in both cases, is what kinds of issues do you think might arise if we pass this? Where are the problems going to be if we pass this? What needs to change so that it works better?
If I may, and John, correct me if I'm wrong, I think John was initially thinking of a critical review and somebody that was perhaps unbiased. And I'm not saying that Nan is biased by any stretch of imagination. I think she's informed, and therefore, I think that's why this is being recommended. Are you comfortable with that, John?
I don't know the person at all, Brian, number one. It's just a general thing. I have no biases when it comes to this person at all. It's just that when someone's involved in the original authorship, how can you possibly ask them to do a review or be critical about the document?
And we're not asking for it. I think it's our job to analyze the document and then have that discussion. Nan is going to help answer questions because, quite frankly, nobody has more expertise.
That's right.
Than her. Does that make sense?
That's right. I want to make a suggestion. If you start with the summary document and the annotated table of contents that tells you where the changes are, it's not a 300-page change. That's our whole zoning law as amended, if we amended it. So if you read the summary document and you look at the table of contents and look at the language in those areas that have had changes, it's a much more manageable thing than it appears at first. And if you look at it and say, oh my God, two ADUs on a property seems like an awful lot, that's the kind of question we need to address. We're getting that feedback from people, and that may very well have to be changed.
Okay, understand where you're coming from.
Thank you, John.
Okay,
We have
everybody.
one
so-
more item.
Yes, there is. And the item is about requesting an extension for the timber harvest for Valentine. And I'm going to tell you that we've had some issues up there from day one. And I saw some of the worst logging operation I've ever seen in my life.
Oh my.
So before we extend that, I want to do a site visit with myself and somebody else.
I had a feeling.
I'd like to go.
Okay, sure. So we'll set up a time. For me, the weekends is the best, but whatever works for you, sometimes after work works.
Should it be above 95 degrees when we do it?
Yeah. Well, it's straight up it's straight up the mountain.
It is.
Cooler in the woods.
She
And,
apparently has a new forester, so. But
They have a new
yes,
forester?
I'll email you privately, Peter.
Yeah.
How's that sound?
All right, so anyway, we'll arrange that. We'll get a good
Perfect.
look up there and then we'll look at the extension. Anything else anybody needs to bring up before adjournment? All good?
Motion to close.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, everybody. Stay cool.
Yeah.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you.
All right,
very much.
everybody.
Thank you, Peter.
Hey,
Thank
Peter,
you.
if,
Thanks, Peter.
Peter,
Yep.
if you're around town, I have stuff for you to sign.
Stuff to sign? Okay.
Yeah, all
All
right.
right. Okay, we'll do.
Thank you.
I don't know.
Read it, read it. Stop. Don't sign out.